I really want to get serious with you today. I know that's unusual on this channel. And, and so, yeah, it's not true. But I am, going to get into some serious issues that I think you'll be so shocked by. I think find them extremely useful. But let's go and start with this. The street believes that Tesla will only make $2 this year. But my analysis suggests they will make 75 cents this quarter and probably at least 250 for the year before the one-time gain of another 75 cents based on the value of those SpaceX shares. So the $2.50, we might be looking at 325 compared to the $2 that the street is expecting. But guess what happens at the end of the second quarter? Well, at the end of the second quarter, which we'll be reporting in July rather, we won't be looking at the street, which is, I think, at 40 cents or 50 cents. We'll be looking at maybe $1.50. Now, that beat will be somewhat evident on July 2nd when the shipments and deployments come out, but might not get fully priced in until the earnings report. You've already heard my feelings about what the shipments will look like. I think they're going to look like 475 to 500,000, maybe even more. And those will be at high margins, so that'll all be good. And then deployments, somewhere between 16 gigawatts and maybe as high as 25 gigawatts. Even 16 gigawatts would blow the people that are paying attention, that would definitely add to share price. All right, from investing.com today, Cathie Wood's ARK ETF published their daily trades for Thursday, June 18th, revealing significant moves in the portfolio. The most substantial trade was the sale of 721,000 shares of Roku with a value of 89 million. And that's kind of what they've been doing recently, is reducing a lot of Roku. But guess who they bought? Okay, they bought Tesla. They bought 54,815 shares of Tesla worth 21,727,000. But I'm just following up because the other day I mentioned, they sold Tesla to buy SpaceX. But quite frankly, they sold Tesla, I think, around 410, and they probably bought it back yesterday for 398. Anyway, what about this? This is a rumor, but it's now been confirmed by Ming. The rumor is from Tesla News España, Tesla News _Spain, translated from the Spanish. Bombshell, Spain plans to approve Tesla FSD supervised on June 30th. After testing it since November with a fleet of more than 30 cars and covering more than 80,000 kilometers without any incidents, deployment is imminent. So there you go. That could be a big help to some of the decisions that are being made in Europe. On the other side of the coin, this is from StockTwits. You're not going to believe it. Sweden's transport authorities have reportedly recommended blocking the Europe-wide rollout of Tesla's full self-driving because unless the company does what? Unless they disable a feature that allows vehicles to exceed legal speed limits. The Swedish Transport Authority sent a letter dated April 30th to the EU's Technical Committee on Motor Vehicles, urging rejection of the system in its current form. The TRV warned that allowing automated systems to systematically exceed legal speed limits risks undermining both the legal framework and the expected safety benefits of vehicle automation. Reminds me of the rolling stops problem that we dealt with a couple of years ago. Tesla's FSD supervisors use cameras and mapping data to detect speed limits and handle steering on city streets, etc. However, the system includes a speed offset. This is different in Europe than it is here. The speed offset function permits the vehicle to travel above posted limits by a margin set by the driver. I think we had this earlier, where you could say, I'm okay to go 5 miles over or 10 miles over. It also features contextual max speed, which adjusts based on surrounding traffic flow, which is, I think, more or less what we have here. And I know that my, as you know, I have I'm still on AI 3, which means I have 12.6. I've seen the car go to like 84 miles an hour in a 70-mile zone. So, yeah, it's based on traffic flow. In the United States, Tesla offers more aggressive driving profiles, including modes that significantly exceed speed limits. In Europe, the company has implemented more restricted versions, but the core ability to exceed speed limits remained a point of contention for regulators. That's why they're called regulators. Barron says this: SpaceX, massive trillion-dollar valuation, is built on the dream of AI data centers in space. Putting data centers in orbit frees them from paying utilities for water and power, as well. Believe me, the utility payment for water is this much. The power, on the other hand, could be a lot, as well as complaints from communities that don't want them in their backyards. There's just one problem. Orbital data centers are really expensive, according to this report. On Thursday, the consulting firm Wood Mackenzie released their analysis showing that orbital data centers cost 3 times as much as terrestrial data centers. A hypothetical 1 gigawatt orbital data center would cost an estimated $170 billion. That launch and satellite costs for that would account for about $100 billion out of that $170 billion. Listen to that again. The launch and satellite costs would be about $100 billion out of that total. Wood Mackenzie estimates that launch costs would need to fall by 70% to make orbital data centers cost competitive. Well, that's actually an encouraging data point because SpaceX plans to cut launch costs by 90% with its huge, fully reusable Starship rocket, which is under development. SpaceX pioneered reusable rockets, cutting the cost of reaching space by more than 95% so far compared to the space shuttle, but the company only reuses the booster rocket on the existing rockets. When a rocket is fully reusable, the cost of reaching space is essentially the cost of the fuel. They got that right in this article. Despite higher costs today, companies including Alphabet are investing in space-based AI technology. Of course, SpaceX's goals are on a different scale. It wants to put 100 gigawatts of AI compute spot in space. That's roughly 5 times the size of today's AI data center capacity totally. SpaceX plans to start launching AI computing satellites in 2028. I'm going to be on the record as saying they're going to get some up in 2027. They're going to get something up in 2027. It might be 5, it might be 10 satellites, but they'll get something up in 27. They'll do something more significant in 2028, and hopefully they'll really be rolling along in 29 or 30. The local backlash to data center development has grown as residents increasingly decry the volumes of water, which are not that big of a deal. They're less than a golf course, and that and the electricity that the factories consume, according to Yardeni research. Ed Yardeni. Their objections have pushed companies to look for alternatives because they're blocking the data centers. Sea and space-based data centers are in the works, but face many obstacles. There are other problems with space-based data centers, aside from the cost. The biggest problem is space. It's a harsh environment, and you can't send a repair person up to fix the frayed wires. Most of these problems, however, should be solvable. SpaceX, after all, has built a profitable space-based broadband product, Starlink, by putting up a constellation of 10,000 satellites. And it's not just broadband, it's also satellite to phone. Starlink also supports SpaceX's valuation. It has more than 10 million subscribers. Actually, it's over 12 now. And optimistic estimates project it will reach hundreds of millions by the end of the decade. Growing Starlink also depends on getting the Starship up there. We forecast $9 trillion, quote, we forecast $9 trillion of terrestrial data center investment between now and 2040. That is where capital goes first, says Robert Liu, research director at Wood Mackenzie. Orbital data centers are a serious long-term proposition, but right now they remain a bet on the cost curve. Right now, investors are taking the bet. SpaceX stock was valued at up to $2.5 trillion last week, though it finished lower than that. So let me just say, I'm going to say this again. Maybe I've already said it. I know I'm going to say it tomorrow when I have Phil Beisel on, and maybe I'll say it today when I'm home with Larry Goldberg, and maybe with Brian too, which will also be on later today. What I want to say is, Um, terrestrial. Elon Musk will be building terrestrial data centers as fast as he possibly can. And there's some suggestion that maybe two of them are already underway. And there's also now evidence that Elon is taking 22% of everything that NVIDIA can produce. That is their purchase order. That's what we're being told. Maybeth, I'm sorry, Maybeth, hardest valuation of future revenues. Oh, I'm so, it's all run together there. What happened with Grok? I don't think that was my typing. Anyway, SpaceX, future revenues and future profits, maybe the hardest valuation of future revenues and earnings I've ever undertaken because of the SpaceX data centers in space. Now, if you're going to make them on Earth, I can do some pretty good spreadsheets right now. But when you take them into space, there are so many known unknowns. So let me give you a quick list. Starship has not gone even orbital yet. This is necessary for any serious effort to put data centers in space. We can't do it on Falcon 9. Number two, the AI satellite, along with radiant cooling and massive solar array, they've never been tested. There are serious analysts who are not confident that this is going to be easy, even though you hear from others say, oh, yeah, no problem. Yeah, I think even Elon says, no, this is not going to be a big deal. But while I think most people think putting a bunch of chips on a satellite is easy, I think the part they think is hard is the solar array and the radiation disbursement. Well, number three, there are issues with maintenance on all aspects of these birds. Best I can tell is that the chips will need to undergo substantial testing before they are deployed. But this might be cost effective anyway, because you could probably have them doing real work while they're being tested. Number four, there's no way to figure the cost right now. NVIDIA chips, what do they cost in the future? Will we be using AI 5s or AI 6s, which will undoubtedly be more efficient per dollar spent than buying from NVIDIA, but we'll probably be doing both. In fact, we'll probably be doing something with TPUs for Google also, although those might not be purchased. They would just be delivered for Google. What about the terafab chips? When those happen, now we don't know when those are going to happen, but if you look at the 4680 and you say, okay, that was hard, but is a terafab going to be harder? So our 2028, 2029 hopes, will they really be 2030, 2031? It isn't a walk in the park. We'll see how that unfolds. Unlimited TAM is what we're counting on. Unlimited TAM means rents will be amazing on whatever we're doing. Buying these tokens will be huge unless there are breakthroughs in computation, in cooling, in algorithms, and in other things that I'm not smart enough to list. There are so many ways that you're already seeing the cost of things come down. The cost of chips might come down. The efficiency of the chips will go up. The cost of cooling could come. It goes on and on and on. But what will it be looking like in 2029, 2030, when we first really start getting the data centers into space? I definitely believe Elon will do all of this. I'd love to think it's all active by 2029. But the doing the impossible late theme is what I think we should count on. That might really mean 2030 or 2031 before we really have scale. That makes the revenue and profit per token even less knowable. However, what we do know with far greater certainty is that Elon can build terrestrial data centers really fast, and that there is an insatiable demand right now in the near term, near to middle term, much of it from robotaxis and Optimus within our own system, as well as macro hard and digital Optimus. So my calculations for SpaceX will be based on TDCs through 2031. That's terrestrial data centers. All right, we have this from Brivael. Brivael is the handle, and it's translated from the French. Many left-wing figures in the US as well as in Europe label Musk as far right. Some even go so far as to use the word Nazi. I did the opposite of the accusations I read before judging. I read 2 biographies. I hope one of them was mine. Dozens of hours of interviews and documentaries. 0 ounces. 0. How many ounces of racism do you think he found? Oh, 0. What I found was a constant obsession with freedom, buying Twitter in the name of free speech, reinstating banned accounts, publishing the Twitter files, opening the algorithm's code, open source Grok, free open sourcing Grok, freeing Tesla's patents in 2014, reactivating Starlink for Iranians cut off from the net during the protests, and for Ukraine, giving them what they needed, repeatedly refusing state censorship requests. Now, let's do the thoughtful experiment, he says, he or she, maybe it's a she. Now let's do a thoughtful experiment that his accusers never think to do. All right, we're going to imagine for a minute that Elon is really evil. This man owns a satellite network that covers the planet, meaning near total surveillance capability. He owns the world's most influential digital public square. He owns the first fortune in history to reach 1 trillion. And no individual has ever concentrated so many levers of power. That doesn't even count his relationships with world leaders. A truly malevolent Musk, with all that in his hands, wouldn't tolerate for a second being called a Nazi 24/7 on his own platform. He would ban, he would surveil, he would crush. But we'd already be living in 1984 if all that happened, and guess what? But the reality is the accounts that accuse him of Nazism still get to do their posts on X every day without hindrance. On his network, with his algorithm, the totalitarian dystopia they're attributing to him is disproved by the absence of the gulag, even on X.com. That's the turnaround. 1984, the control of speech, mass surveillance, the public designation of heretics. That's not his project. It's the fantasy of those who accuse him. The accusation always describes the accuser. This is Gerard in its pure form. We designated a scapegoat to avoid seeing the mechanisms we ourselves carry. The one who screams Nazi often quietly dreams in silence of the power to ban, to file, and to silence. The man who would have all the means to build 1984 right now is precisely the one who lets his worst detractors speak. Ask yourself who, in this story, really dreams of the telescreen. All right, there you go. That's what I got for you today. Earlier this morning, we put out a video by Cern Basher. I'll put that card right up here. Last night, of course, it was Bradford Ferguson. Let's put a card up for Bradford as well. Obviously, those shows were both amazing. And then later on, it'll be Larry Goldberg. And first thing in the morning, it will be Brian Wang if everything goes as planned. All right, that's what we got for you right now. I'm going to say goodbye for the moment, and we will see you later. It's been great talking to you.